The blood moon eclipse did not finish when the sky went dark. That night was the opening, not the conclusion. What has been unfolding in the days since, the emotional weight, the sudden recognitions, the strange quality of interactions that feel more revealing than usual, the sense that something has fundamentally shifted, even if you cannot yet name exactly what. That is the eclipse doing the work it was always designed to do. And today, March 6th, that window is beginning to close. This matters more than it might sound. The period immediately following a lunar eclipse, particularly a blood moon eclipse with the intensity that this one carried, is when the energy that was released during the event begins to set. The way concrete sets after it is poured, the shift that was made available by the eclipse does not stay in a fluid, available state indefinitely. It moves toward a fixed form, and what form it takes is directly shaped by the choices, realizations, and responses that happen in the days immediately following the eclipse. Today is one of the last days inside that fluid period. What you do with this is going to influence the shape of the next several months. To understand why the timing matters, you need a clear sense of what the blood moon eclipse actually did and why the 3/3 portal alignment that preceded it by only 2 days amplified the conditions so significantly. The blood moon, the total lunar eclipse where the moon takes on a deep red color as Earth's shadow filters the light, carries a quality of completion and purging that is more intense than an ordinary lunar eclipse. The full moon itself represents culmination, the peak of a cycle, the moment when what was seeded at the new moon reaches full visibility. A blood moon eclipse takes that culmination and amplifies it through the disruption of the eclipse itself, the interference of Earth's shadow, the interruption of the usual light, the temporary plunging of the moon into a different color and quality of illumination. What gets illuminated during a blood moon eclipse is what was already at the surface of completion, but had not yet been fully acknowledged. The 3/3 portal, March 3rd carrying the 333 activation, set conditions of heightened communication and directed intention in the days before the eclipse's full energy landed. 3 is the number of expression, of movement from internal to external, of the moment when what has been held inside finds its way out into form. The portal's activation in the days before the eclipse created a channel through which the eclipse energy could move more directly into the communication layer of people's lives, into the conversations that needed to happen, the truths that needed to be expressed, the decisions that needed to be voiced. What this combination produced in the days between March 3rd and today is a period of unusual and accelerated clarity. Not comfortable clarity in every case, in many cases quite the opposite, but clear clarity, the kind that shows you things about your situations and your relationships and your own choices with a precision that the ordinary protective layers of comfortable interpretation usually soften or obscure. The twist in all of this, the part that most people do not fully register until they look back on it later, is that the eclipse itself was not the shift. The eclipse was the trigger. The actual shift, the one that produces real change in the structure of your life, happens or does not happen based on what you do with what the eclipse revealed. The eclipse cannot make the changes for you. It can only create the conditions under which the changes become more visible, more necessary, and more possible than they are at ordinary points in the year. The people who will experience genuine, lasting change from this eclipse cycle are not the ones who felt the energy most intensely during the eclipse night. They are the ones who are engaging now in the aftermath with what the eclipse surfaced, who are taking the clarity seriously, who are making decisions from it rather than waiting for the activated feeling to pass, and then returning to exactly the positions they held before the eclipse opened the window. Today there are specific things you may be noticing, and they deserve your direct attention rather than being explained away as ordinary emotional weather. Sudden clarity about situations you have been tolerating too long, the relationship that has not been serving you, the arrangement that has been draining more than it has been sustaining, the commitment you entered from obligation or fear rather than genuine alignment. These are standing in sharper relief today than they were a week ago. The tolerance you were extending was based on a combination of hope, habit, and the energetic cost of confronting the reality more directly than you had been willing to. The eclipse reduced that tolerance threshold. What you were willing to carry before the eclipse is now weighing more noticeably. The question today is whether you register that weight as information and use it, or whether you work to rebuild the tolerance that made carrying it feel manageable before. People revealing their true intentions. In the days following a blood moon eclipse, the social management that most people maintain around their genuine feelings becomes harder to sustain. The energy that holds the performance layer in place gets disrupted. What people actually feel, what they actually intend, what they actually prioritize, these break through the surface more readily than they do at ordinary points in the year. If someone in your life has been showing you something in the last several days that surprised you, something in their behavior, their responsiveness, their level of genuine presence or absence, you are not misreading. The eclipse aftermath has a quality of unmasking that is real and reliable. What you are seeing is closer to the actual state of things than what you typically have access to. Emotional detachment where there used to be confusion. This is one of the more striking features of the blood moon aftermath, and one of the most important to notice. Confusion about a person or situation, the kind that kept you cycling through interpretations, extending benefit of the doubt, returning to the same questions without resolution, has shifted, for many people, into something quieter. Not numb, not cold, but a kind of clear-eyed distance that has arrived without you consciously choosing it. That emotional detachment is not a problem to be solved. It is the natural result of the eclipse delivering enough clarity that the confusion no longer has anything to feed on. Where genuine information has replaced ambiguity, the anxious cycling that ambiguity produces simply stops. Let it stop. Do not reach back toward the confusion because the clarity feels different and strange. The strong internal push toward a different direction. The eclipse has a way of making the current trajectory of your life feel either clearly right or clearly insufficient, with less room for the comfortable middle position of not quite sure. If you are feeling an internal pull towards something different, a different approach to a relationship, a different professional direction, a different way of allocating your energy and attention, that pull is the integrated output of everything the eclipse has been processing through your system over the last several days. It is directional intelligence. It is not necessarily telling you to demolish everything and start over, though for some people that genuinely is the indicated direction. It is pointing you toward the adjustment, the conversation, the decision, the step that the situation most urgently requires. Ignoring these signals today carries a real and specific cost, and it is worth being direct about what that cost looks like. The eclipse cycle creates a window of elevated possibility. Inside that window, the changes that are naturally indicated, the ones that are aligned with your genuine growth and with what the situation actually requires, are more available than they usually are. The momentum is with them. The energy is supporting them. The clarity is present to guide them. When you do not act on what an eclipse cycle surfaces, the window closes and the energy settles back into the patterns that were in place before the eclipse disrupted them. The situation continues. The relationship continues. The arrangement continues. And the same material will need to surface again in a future cycle before another clear opportunity for change arrives. The months between eclipse cycles are not periods during which the unaddressed material quietly waits. It continues operating in your life, shaping your choices and your experience from below the surface, consuming the resources you would otherwise be directing toward the things you actually want. The cost of ignoring what this eclipse has surfaced is paid not in a single moment of obvious consequence, but in the slow, steady drain of living inside misalignment longer than necessary, and of arriving at the next eclipse cycle with more accumulated material to address rather than less. The practical guidance for today is specific to this closing window. Observation before reaction. Even now, even with the window narrowing, acting from peak emotional charge produces less clean results than acting from the clearer position available when the first wave of feeling has been allowed to move through. Before you respond to anything significant today, before you send the message, have the conversation, make the announcement, take enough space for the immediate emotional activation to settle. Not days, not a week, an hour or a morning, or the time it takes to write down what you are thinking and read it back. The clarity is running high today. Acting from clarity rather than from the emotional intensity that accompanies it will produce better outcomes from the same essential insight. Conscious decisions instead of emotional impulse. The internal push toward change that many people are feeling today is real and is pointing at something genuinely indicated. The question is whether the specific action you are considering is the cleanest expression of what that push is directing you toward, or whether it is the most emotionally satisfying version. The dramatic gesture, the sweeping declaration, the confrontation that releases pressure, but may not produce the resolution the situation actually needs. The cleaner action is usually the more precise one, the one that addresses the specific essential thing rather than the accumulated weight of everything surrounding it. Pay attention to where your energy feels naturally aligned today. After an eclipse that has been disrupting and revealing and pressing toward change, the things that remain genuinely energized, the connections that feel clear rather than draining, the work that has stayed interesting through the disruption, the direction that has been pulling rather than pushing. These are the things the eclipse is pointing you toward as resources and as right direction. The natural alignment is not something to manufacture. It is something to notice. Where does your energy move with ease today? Where does it encounter consistent resistance or consistent heaviness? The answers to those two questions are doing significant navigational work, and they are most accessible in the window of elevated clarity that you are currently inside. The eclipse opened a door. That is a concrete thing that happened, and its effects on your perception, your emotional state, your relationships, and your understanding of your own situation are real. The door has been open for several days. You have been moving through it, through the pressure and the clarity and the releases and the recognitions of this entire week. Today the door is beginning to close. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the fluid period during which the eclipse energy is most actively available for conscious integration is moving toward its end. What you choose now, while the clarity is still at its highest point, while the signals are still readable, while the momentum is still present, those choices determine what the eclipse actually changed in your life and what simply passed through without leaving a mark. The eclipse did its part. It surfaced what needed to surface. It delivered clarity that the ordinary conditions of your life were not producing. It created the conditions for genuine movement in the directions your life has been needing to move. The final integration belongs to you. The decisions you make in the next 24 to 48 hours, from the clearest position you have available, with the genuine awareness of what this cycle has been showing you, those decisions are the shift. They are what the eclipse was building toward. The window is closing. Use what it has given you while it is still available. The door is open. Move through it.